Hey everyone, welcome to week 4. We are starting our module on fitness this week. So we're sort of shifting gears from where we've been for the past few weeks. Of course, it's all probably going to tie in together as we keep adding on the layers of what we are learning about ourselves and instituting in our lives. And so this is just another part of that we're going to be exploring, the fitness side of our life. So we're talking about fitness in terms of purposeful fitness. And what that means and how we can kind of find our groove with the fitness part of our lives. So, fitness is really part of a healthy lifestyle, and our bodies were made to move. They were made to be strong. We have muscles for a reason. We are meant to do work, and we're meant to, we've got legs to travel on. And so, fitness in the sense of that is what we were designed for. So, if you're like me, and you're not particularly athletically inclined, that's where I've started from, is that fitness can kind of feel like this big bad monster that you're trying to tackle and kind of understand its nature, and it maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. So we want to break that down. But maybe some of you, you're thinking, well, it's not that bad. I wouldn't call it a monster, but there's an element of challenge that comes with integrating fitness into your life, or maybe you have in the past and now it doesn't quite work the same way for you for whatever reason, and you need to find a new approach. And so, we want to include those notions into how we look at fitness as well, because there's not just one way to do things. And if something we've tried in the past doesn't work, whether it's been avoidance or it just doesn't fit in, or, we're not really sure even what we should be doing to try and make fitness not a waste of our time in our life, then we want to start looking at some different components here. So that's what we're talking about, purposeful fitness. What gives us purpose in what we do when we approach our fitness. So fitness is partly what we do all day long, and it's partly kind of more of an intense interval in that all day long dance. And of course, because what goes up must come down, there's also a component of rebooting that's necessary in the process of fitness. So what we do all day long is our movement, our general movement. Our bodies were made to move. We're going to be moving somehow all day long. If we're not moving, it's probably because we're in a hospital bed, or maybe we're sick in bed, or something's probably wrong, or we have somehow had to make the choice not to move out of, could be, lots of different reasons. Either, sometimes we're in a very sedentary job and we're forced to sit all day. But even within that, we do have the opportunity for movement. So there'd be very few reasons why we would absolutely not be able to move our bodies all day long. The intensive intervals that we're talking about are opportunities where we're using or building our strength. And so we can do that on purpose, which is often what happens when we decide that we want to build our strength, and we go to the gym, we lift some weights, we maybe start running, we want to build our heart, we want to build our endurance, we're doing something to build our body up. Sometimes it happens by accident when we have to do yard work and carry some heavy rocks or shovel some dirt, or maybe some other laborious kind of task that really challenges us, and we inadvertently end up getting to use those muscles and build them. But at some point, that's a component of how we are staying fit. The third part is that we naturally just need to reboot. And so we reboot with rest. And even though we don't think of rest as being part of our fitness, that to me is one of the most crucial parts of that if we're going to move, then we also need to respect our body's need to not move and what that looks like, because sometimes the rest that we end up taking, we see it as being lazy or unmotivated, and of course that happens, but we don't want to confuse that as we get more active, as we include fitness as a regular part of our life, that we don't confuse the times when we're not doing anything with just simply being lazy. So we want to make that distinction. Fitness at its core is not a weight loss tool. And weight loss, I mean like the change of weight on your scale. So fitness is not meant to solely be used as something that you can watch your weight go down to use. That's where we get ourselves into a little bit of trouble and get a little bit frustrated, I think, with it. Because if that's our only goal, then three things are going to happen. If we only use fitness as a tool to reduce our weight, then eventually it's going to stop. Eventually you're not going to be working out anymore, because either you've met your goal and then the goal of using it for weight loss is no longer there, or it's actually not working the way you want it to, and you end up stopping, because why would you do something that is a complete waste of your time? You're not getting what you want out of it. The second thing that could happen is that you'll actually have to keep doing more and more. So if you do find that exercise is successful in reducing your weight, guess what? Your body adapts to doing that exercise, and it's going to demand more and more to keep those results coming. And so when you keep looking for that result on the scale as your measure of success, it means do more. So I was running for half an hour, now I need to run for 45 minutes. Now I need to run for 60 minutes. And now I'm running for 60 minutes and I'm exhausted and I'm still not losing weight. So what's the problem? So eventually you're going to have to either keep doing more, or you'll probably end up stopping. Point one. The third point is that you won't necessarily get any healthier or lead a healthier lifestyle. Again, if you're just using the scale weight as your measure of why you're doing your fitness. Because, again, if we look at the first 2 points, is that either it's going to stop or you are going to have to keep doing more and more. And those things don't necessarily lend themselves to being more healthy. In fact, often they start doing the reverse and you get less and less healthy. And again, if the purpose is losing weight, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to leading a healthier lifestyle and looking at the full range of changes and long-term benefits and ways that we can sustain that. So if you are at all concerned about any of those points that I made, that if you don't want those things to happen and you want to actually create a healthier body composition, which means not just looking at your scale weight, but looking at actually like your lean tissue and your muscle compared to how much fat you have on your body. That is body composition. So you want to have more lean tissue on your body than you do fat. Weight loss means basically I could cut off your arm and you'd lose 10 pounds. Often we don't want that to be the thing that we do, but essentially, I mean, that's really what our weight's telling us. So we can end up actually taking muscle off our bodies when we're trying to lose fat off our bodies. And what we don't realize is that we're actually deteriorating our muscle rather than just losing fat. And that's not a good situation to be in either. So we want to look more at body composition. And we don't want to just make the scale go down so that we are happier with our body weight. We want to make our lives hopefully happier and healthier in all sorts of ways. So if that is what you want to do and create more of a purposeful fitness, then there's 3 things we have to do. First is we're going to find your sweet spot for that fitness. So what that fitness means to you in your life and how you get it done. The second thing is that we need to find a long-term consistency to that. So if you can't do it forever, again, the key term is doable. If you can't do that forever, then it's really, at the end of the day, going to be a waste of your time. So it should be something that's part of your healthy lifestyle over a long period of time. The third part is to base your progress, whatever you want to call it, progress, results, success, whatever that means to you, on your health markers, not just your body weight. So health markers, body composition is a health marker. Maybe it's reduction in your blood glucose levels that have been shooting up to the pre-diabetes level. Bring that down. Maybe a health marker is increasing your cardiovascular fitness, whatever it might be. We want to see those health markers improve overall. Part of that is probably going to be body composition, but it's not the be-all and end-all of what creates a healthy body for you. And like I said, just because you lose weight doesn't mean you get any healthier. So if that's important to you, then purposeful fitness is going to be important to you. And that's what we're going to get into today. As you can see, I'm coming to you today from my little home gym. I have lots of paraphernalia back there, but really I work out at home with dumbbells and maybe some barbells and some really simple stuff. A lot of that doesn't even get used, believe it or not, but is there just for some extra tools, just because I have it. And so you don't need to have a fancy gym to be involved in fitness or to keep in shape. Just some simple things at home can really be useful. And so if you have any questions about that as we go along, ask me. But right now we're going to plow into purposeful fitness and how we achieve that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is look at finding your sweet spot. So first of all, let's look at what is your sweet spot. I think the term comes from golfers and their golf clubs, that especially on your driver, there's sort of this one spot. If you hit the ball just right on that one spot, it just like flies and it's beautiful. And so that's what we want to do, is we sort of want to find that place that once we hit it, it just flies and it's effortless and it is exactly what we want it to do. And that's what we mean by our sweet spot. So what is it? How do we figure it out? How do we find it? How do we practice it? So your sweet spot is basically what your natural routine or your habits that you implement into your life that are doable for you and that improve your well-being in some ways. So again, that key word of doable is important, and that improves your life in some way. So doing something, it's just like that golf swing hits that ball, it does exactly what we want it to do, and it's effortless and it's beautiful. So we can do lots of things that actually don't provide those things in our life, even though they probably feel like they should. If they're not, then it's still no good. So you don't just want to sign up for something like, say, a spin class. This is what you don't want to do. I hear this from people all the time, that they think that they're going to get on top of their fitness and they go do all these things because they're supposed to, and it doesn't turn out so well. So this is something you wouldn't want to do. You don't want to sign up for something like maybe a spin class because you heard it was something that was fun and that you're going to lose weight doing it, but then you end up trying it and you hate it, and so you dread every time you have to go, and it stresses you out thinking about having to go and go through this process, and then you try and skip as much as you can, because if you can get out of not going, then even better, and you'll just go home and you can sit and drink wine instead. And then even when you do go, it's like so mentally and physically exhausting that you really don't have any energy left for anything else. So while it could be good exercise, it's not really hitting that sweet spot. It's kind of making things maybe a little bit more negative for you. So that's not what we want. So instead, let's look at another scenario. So maybe you don't have a lot of time for exercise. Maybe you don't particularly love to exercise, but you want to get healthier. You want to have more energy. You want to, feel stronger, maybe tighter. Like you want to do something that really makes you feel better. So you go and sign up for a bodybuilding competition. Just kidding. That's where most of our minds go, right? As we think, okay, I want to do all these things. What could it possibly be that will be the key for me? I'm going to go and do something that's going to kick my butt and get me into doing it. Whew! And no, that's not what we're trying to do here. So what you want to do when you try and find your sweet spot is to find something that really you need to put the least amount of effort into and have the least amount of expectation from. And people go, huh? What are you talking about? I want to go and be beast mode. I know I can do this. And no, I'm telling you, I want you to start with something that is the least amount of effort and the least amount of expectation of what you need to do to do it. So think of your sweet spot as kind of like this circle. It starts small and it has the ability to just gradually expand. Kind of like an elastic band starts small, and as you increase it, it expands where it opens up to. So if you start to try and fill the potential of that larger expansion of the circle, that's a lot of stuff to fill when you're don't have anything to start with. It's like trying to get a big bucket and say you're going to find a whole bunch of black rocks to fill this particular bucket, and it's huge, and that seems a bit overwhelming. You probably might start feeling like, yeah, okay, I know a beach where I can go find black rocks, this should be no problem, and then it gets tiring and you think, how am I ever going to do this? I promised I was going to fill this big bucket, and you figure out you can't really do that easily. Whereas maybe if you decided you wanted to find 3 really nice black rocks for your collection, that might be a little bit better. Yeah, I'll go to the beach now, I have a lot of choice from all those big rocks, and oh, I did it, I've got these 3 beautiful rocks. And so a really simple example, but if you think about it, that's what we're trying to do here. So we want to start the process with what can occupy that smaller space of that sweet spot that is doable and achievable for you. So the great thing about this is that we are humans with fabulous potential, and where we start matters in order to tap into that potential. Take, for example, when we start our education. We start in preschool. We start in preschool as a no-brainer. We would not send a 3-year-old to university to start their education. We start in preschool because we have potential there. Just because we start there doesn't mean that we stay there. And just because we start there doesn't mean that we're lazy. We're starting there for a reason, because it gives us a place to get planted, to learn, and to thrive. So it makes sense to start there. But that's not often how we go about our fitness goals. We really get into that all or nothing thing. It almost presents itself like a big block in front of us of how to do that without kind of being all or nothing. So when we start there in that smaller expectation, that smaller component of our potential, it allows us to get what we need to start the process of figuring out our own sense of purposeful fitness, and to start the process of finding that sweet spot. So then where do we start? So remember, we have 3 components that are important to our fitness. We have movement, we have strength, and we have rest. So that's a good place to start, is think about your fitness in those terms. Those 3 things are important. So it's not that you need to do something really crazy to get fit. You need to start by incorporating one of those components. So for example, if you're somebody who doesn't move a whole lot, maybe you're in a sedentary job, or you find you're not very motivated to do a lot of extra movement, then movement is probably a good place to start. So walking. It doesn't have to be far. If you can get out for 5 minutes to start, it's something. It's a start. If you can get out for 10 minutes, great. If you actually don't mind walking and you enjoy it, have somebody to go with, go for an hour on a nice walk somewhere in nature or wherever it is. Go see something. That is fabulous. That's a good place to start. On the other hand, if you're somebody who's maybe quite busy, on the go all the time, pretty stressed out, don't have a lot of time for exercise and not a lot of time for anything else, and you're just kind of a stress case a lot of the times, then that's not maybe a healthy place to start some really intense exercise and add that component into your life. So what you want to start with is rest. So yes, you want to schedule in a training session of rest. And I tell this to people a lot when they start, when that's kind of what their lives look like, is that how can you expect to include exercise in your life as part of your routine when you don't see a way, everything's too stressful. So we're going to start by actually scheduling in rest. And again, we have potential. So once we start scheduling in rest, it actually gives us something that we need in our lives. We can convert that into exercise when the time comes. But start with rest if you're not getting rest that you need right now. And the other example would be if you're pretty active already, you're not particularly stressed out, you just maybe don't really know what to start with. Walking's maybe something you do already. You don't feel that you need to balance things out with a lot of rest, and maybe you're even just short on time. That's where your intensity intervals can come in, building that muscle, maintaining the muscle, whatever it is. So again, that could be something that is labor intensive around the house or yard work. If you've got those kinds of things on your plate to do, do them. They're important too. Or if you just need something a little bit more structured, then doing a quick weight routine. And again, starting small, you only need anywhere from 2 to 4 movements to start with. You don't need equipment. If you do, even better. But whatever, you can do squats, you can do push-ups. If you need some help with that, let me know. But again, the idea is start with what you can. If you're short on time, 10 minutes is great. If you have more, we can do more, but you don't need to do a whole lot more. Maybe 20 to 30 minutes max. Don't think you have to do more than that. Is a good place to start. So we're going to talk about this more on our calls, because again, this is going to be specific to you. So start thinking about this. Think about where your thoughts are with this, where you think you might want to start, and I'll be there to help you with that action plan, or even a fitness plan if you need one to get moving with that. So that's your sweet spot. Let's move on to the next component. Okay, so our next part of purposeful fitness is the being able to stay consistent with what you're doing long term. So the key word here again is doable. If you've heard enough of that word yet, it has to be doable. You have to be able to do it. So what does consistent really mean? Consistent doesn't mean that you do it every day. It means that you have set yourself up in a unique way with a routine that can be easily achieved on a regular basis. You get to decide what that means, really. Your life is unique to you, and even changes in your life are going to be unique. And so what does that mean to you to stay consistent with what that is that you do? And again, what you're consistent with is going to change and evolve, because like we talked about finding that sweet spot, if you're starting with a 10-minute walk, then it's important that you're able to stay consistent with that 10-minute walk before you add in a weight routine. So again, what you want to stay consistent with is what is involved in your least minimum effort over a long period of time. So that's always going to be your fallback, is what can I do consistently over a long period of time, even if that's sort of the minimum requirement. So before you move ahead from that 10-minute walk, you want to be doing that consistently. You want to feel like that is doable. When that is doable, you can add in another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Or you can say, it's time for me, I can start to maybe try some weight training and add in, 5 or 10 minutes of weight training to that. And then do that consistently and let that grow and evolve. And that minimum effort that you can stay consistent with is where you grow your consistency and what that picture looks like. So what's the benefit of staying consistent long term? Basically, consistency trumps effort. So just like the spin class example we used about sort of jumping into doing this spin class, that's a whole lot of effort, but it wasn't able to be consistent. So we want consistency is to be greater than effort, basically. So basically, it's great if you can put out an extraordinary effort once in a while. Lots of times we say, oh yeah, I got on this kick and I, went and did this and this and this, and then I just kind of stopped. So that's great if you can do those things, but it doesn't really provide anything, as far as long-term sustainability or change in your life. So while great efforts are important, the consistency part of it is what is going to be more important. So the other part is that if it also is something that exhausts you over the long term, then the benefits of that practice are going to deteriorate. And we don't want that to happen, because the point of fitness is energy creation, not energy exhaustion. Okay, so we want energy, not exhaustion from our exercise. And a lot of people are really familiar with exercise becoming a source of exhaustion, and I think that's why we stay away from it. Again, going back to that example, that if you want to know a place to start and you're already busy and stressed out and you need to start with rest, that's another good example of why it's important to start with rest. Because if you're jumping into something that's going to exhaust you more, not contribute to your energy, that's not a place that you want to be. So don't get me wrong though, exercise definitely has its place for being challenging, and that yes, it's crucial that exercise is intense and hard work every so often. That is really important. So listen to this. Intensity works when it's short and sweet. So I think we get some of these concepts confused a lot too, that again, if we're going to go all in, it's like all or nothing, intense, intense, intense. But really, intensity is designed to be short and sweet, not a long, exhausting process. So you know that your intensity is working when you feel the fatigue during your workout. You feel the challenge, you feel that during the workout, but it's not a sense of exhaustion after the workout. So you're not like dead on the sofa for 3 days after your workout because it was so intense. You should actually feel more energized for 3 days after that workout than exhausted from it. So, of course, if you're an athlete or you're training for something, if you've signed up for a half marathon or something, there's probably going to be a little bit more of intense training that's involved with something like that. And yes, there's probably going to be more of a factor of exhaustion and tiredness, and maybe a little bit of energy zapping that goes along with that. It's the nature of kind of working towards that challenge. But most of us aren't working on those terms. We're working on trying to incorporate it into our life as a pleasant thing. And maybe that half marathon will come at some point, but we'll know how to handle all of this structure of the fitness in our life. So so that's maybe an exception, but purposeful fitness is something that is an energy booster, not an energy zapper. So that's important. And also why movement and rest are part of that formula, because they naturally allow our bodies to have times of less intensity. You know, the movement, every time we move our bodies, when we take a walk, you know, when we are fidgeting even, or just, you know, doing light work, you know, chores around the house, whatever, that's all movement that contributes to our bodies being able to have a healthy metabolism and function, and keep burning the food that we've eaten and all of that. And the rest, of course, really gives our bodies a chance to recover and to restore, and that's important so that we can keep going. So those parts are all really important as contributing to that energy tank to boost our energy. So you can see why it all fits together, because we want to keep boosting our energy, and all of those things are part of that. So long-term consistency is going to be a balance of all of those components together. And of course, your formula is going to be unique, and it's going to take some time to figure out, especially if this is all kind of new to you. So you need to be patient, and it is one of those things, again, trial and error, and figuring out what works for you. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of a different perspective on your long-term fitness goals. And again, we can talk about this and figure out an action plan for you as time goes on. Okay, so the last part we're going to touch on here is looking at your motivation for your purposeful fitness. You know, we talked about maybe it's results, success, whatever that kind of buzzword is for you. You know, what are your goals? What are your expectations from this? We talked about health markers as being one, that the goal of fitness and all that encompasses is to create a better health for you. And everybody might have their own concerns to do with that. And so that might be a personal thing, but you might know what some of those are for you. Like we talked about, you know, blood glucose or your body composition, those types of things. Your energy level, again, that was a big part of that discussion as well. You know, is your fitness giving you energy or draining you of energy? And is it something you can be consistent with? So those are things that if you're being consistent with it, that is a huge marker of success, that you are able to do it and it's part of your life. So don't belittle those things. Those are just as important as anything else. A key thing, just like we talked about with nutrition, is that we want to be building our body up, not breaking it down. And this applies to what you're doing with your fitness as well. So you want to be sure that you are able to give your body what it needs as far as the fitness goes. And like I said before, remember, it's movement, strength, and rest. Our body needs a variety of those things and in different amounts, but are you giving it what it needs? Fitness is nourishment. So when we are active in our life, that is one form of nourishment for our bodies. And we also need to create convictions around that, just like we do with our nutrition. You know, this helps us. It becomes less of a chore and something that we want to include in our lives. So just a little word of advice though, avoid the scale in this process. Often, you know, we talk about what is our motivation and goal here, and a lot of times it involves seeing what our weight is doing in regards to the exercise. But my advice is don't do that. There's plenty of ways to measure your success that don't involve actually stepping on the scale. I think the scale is really great for maintenance. So when you get to the place of feeling how you want to feel, and you are really doing well with your consistency in that sweet spot, and you want to figure out, okay, now where am I at? This is where I want to kind of stay. That's a good time to say, okay, now what does that look like on the scale? Okay, that's where it is. So now it kind of gives you a place to look to see, you know, where things change once you get there. But overall, I find for most people, especially those who are chronic dieters, the scale becomes more of an enemy than a friend, and that is often not a positive experience in all of this, and it kind of sways our view of what we're doing oftentimes. So the scale is great for maintenance, but not motivation. It's not a motivating tool, even if you think it is. Don't use it for that. It's good for maintenance. It's good for a check-in if you can handle it. Check in, see where it's at, but it's not the be-all and end-all of what your progress and consistency looks like. We can talk more about that if that's something you have a question about. We'll talk more about that in your call, and we can see where that fits into your life. But really building up your body into a really healthful place has little to do with your weight. You can lose all the weight you want. You can be at your perfect body weight and never step on a scale. You don't need to know the number per se, and so that's why I want to take the focus off of that, because really how we get to that place is by what we do every day. The scale isn't a judge of that. Our judgment is, again, are we hitting our sweet spot? Are we staying consistent long term? Are we following what our motivation is for these things in a healthy way, such as the health markers and gaining energy and having that structure there. So that's something I want you to keep in mind. So this is how your fitness is purposeful. It means that it's part of your life no matter what. That's where we want to get to, that your purposeful fitness is just part of your life. It's not a chore. It's not something you dread. It's not something that's unattainable. It's something that's just part of your life and you don't think about it anymore. It also encompasses more than just a single goal. So there's all sorts of reasons why we stay active, and there's all sorts of reasons within those three components of movement and strength and rest of why we do what we do that is more than just a single goal. So they're all important. The third part is that our purposeful fitness creates energy in our life. It doesn't take it away. That's really a process that cannot be accurately measured by any scale or body weight. And that's important to remember, is that we want to create life and energy. Remember, that ties into what we were talking about with metabolism last week, what metabolism means, and the fitness part of it is part of that well-functioning metabolism. And so when we have that really can't be marked in some of those ways we think that it should be marked. That's why it's bigger than just a single goal of maybe weight loss. It's all these other factors combined. So strive to find your purpose and find your sweet spot. We'll be working on that. And then above all that, create your own conviction of why you do this and have it be a driver for creating more energy and joy in your life. And that will come full circle back into purpose. So I hope that this week was helpful to you, and I look forward to talking to you on our call this week. Good luck with it all. Bye.